Well, Singapore enters phase 2 of reopening on Friday, and retail establishments will have to adhere to updated rules on how to resume activities safely. Enterprise Singapore guidelines say businesses will have to manage queues to ensure there's at least 1 meter between customers. Play areas and activities in atriums within malls will not be allowed. Health screenings and safe entry systems must be in place. Masks must be worn by everyone at all times. Hygiene standards must be raised. Areas with high touch points must be frequently cleaned and disinfected. Large standalone retail complexes will also have to maintain an occupancy limit of 1 person per 10 square meters. Signs and service staff should be on hand to remind people of these measures.
No discounts, no sales, at least for the first 2 weeks. That's part of guidelines to ensure that large crowds aren't drawn to and around shopping malls when retail and dine-in F&B operations resume this Friday. CapitaLand, which owns and manages 18 malls, tells CNA it will allow retailers to use underutilized spaces such as atriums to manage queues. It will also make a queuing management system available to tenants, which will allow shoppers to be in a digital queue while they are elsewhere.
People are very used to going in and then taking their own time, and usually that's the entire idea behind the mall. How do you think it will affect the experience, and how is CapitaLand intending to mitigate that?
As this is just the initial period, definitely the safety of the shoppers comes first. In terms of the enjoyment in the shopping malls, we will be looking at creating convenience through the use of technology, as well as helping them to plan their shopping journey in advance. So in this way, they can get to choose the kind of services as well as products that they would like in the quickest and most efficient manner.
Meanwhile, Fraser's Property Retail, which has 14 malls in its portfolio, says it will open additional entry and exit points at its malls if necessary. It's also deploying additional staff at entrances, on top of point-of-entry terminals to manage the number of customers within its malls. The authorities say inspections will be carried out to ensure the rules are followed. Businesses that flout the rules may have their government grants, loans, tax rebates, and other assistance withheld.
Well, even as retailers prepare to reopen, some of them are retaining and improving on innovations that were first tried out during the circuit breaker.
Turn on your smartphone camera, choose a product, pick a color, and find out what looks best on you. Cosmetic company L'Oreal is thinking out of the box, with personal testers not allowed as part of measures to keep customers safe from the coronavirus. The technology is now available on its online store, but will be rolled out in physical outlets from next month. L'Oreal is also using QR codes to direct customers to information on products to minimize contact.
It's a very digital world, and the group has always been very advanced in beauty tech, and over the in developing many services, beauty tech, advanced technology on how we can always better serve our customers.
While most shops are expected to reopen this Friday, clothing retailer Love Bonito will only raise its shutters next week. It says the extra time will help mentally prepare staff who've been working from home for more than 2 months. It also gives the company time to clean and manage the space in stores. The retailer says it'll take lessons learned during the circuit breaker period into the future.
I think what we're honestly quite excited by is to see also how retailers and brands will have to innovate, right? I think through providing of, just new platforms, new touch points, right? Maybe more live selling, right? Virtual streaming. I think retailers just being really forced to innovate and be more creative.
It's a similar story for furniture store Grafount, which will have what it calls a digital concierge while it maintains its physical store. This involves linking up with potential clients on social media.
Each of our product advisor will be available to communicate with inquiries as well as customers, providing them with more in-depth understanding of the products, as well as advising them on certain customizations and options available for the products. On top of that, we've also embarked on the e-commerce initiative by Capital Mall, which is the E-Capital Mall.
To further minimize contact, Grafount will ask its customers who typically like to personally choose products to make appointments. It will also spend 2 days cleaning its 14,000 square foot store.
The Restaurant Association of Singapore has met with Enterprise Singapore to clarify safe distancing guidelines once dine-ins can resume on Friday. They also discussed topics like contact tracing and temperature taking as well, something that Swenson's is already putting into place. The restaurant chain will also adopt safe entry soon. It's using balloons to mark out alternate table seating. The restaurant had already marked out lines to keep queuing customers 1 meter apart.
What was helpful in clarification was that this safe distancing guideline applied to distancing between groups. There is a requirement that we can have a maximum of 5 in a group, and that within those groups they can sit together on the same table. So that was a helpful clarification.
Well, in the meantime, experts say Singapore is in a good position to move to phase 2. They say while the total infections curve has not flattened yet, community cases have come down significantly.
Well, the total number of infections has gone up to almost 41,000. The increase is happening at a slower rate. 151 new cases were reported on Tuesday, the lowest daily addition in over 2 months.
What is more important is whether we have the processes in place to catch those people who are infected and to perform the necessary contact tracing to identify all the people who are infected and to test them quickly. This process is much more important than simply worrying about the day-to-day numbers, whether it has gone up or down with greater easing.
Another silver lining, the number of new cases in the community has fallen.
If you look at the case numbers for community transmission, it peaked at some time in late March and the first week of April. But after that, it did come down very significantly. Now, I think our weekly average is less than 10 cases. That is a very good sign. So in terms of that, we have indeed flattened the curve for the community cases.
Experts CNA spoke to also say the phases are a stress test to see how the community copes, not just physically, but also in terms of a mindset shift towards embracing a new normal.
If the numbers start to increase progressively as the time passes, we know that some of the activities that we are undertaking in phase 2, it's contributing to greater transmission in the community. We need to identify those. We may need to shut down some of these sectors.
We would also know, within a few weeks, if we have got an unlinked community cases situation, clusters forming, that things are not going in the right direction, and then we have to look and see where the weak points are.
But experts also warn that the public needs to be sensible even as they venture back out into the community when phase 2 kicks in.
The lifting of the measures happened on Friday, and it coincides with the Father's Day weekend. So, obviously there's going to be a lot of families that are going to go out to eat, to celebrate not just Father's Day, but also perhaps that phase 2 has begun.
We would also be bringing fathers and grandfathers and elderly people out. And so these are also vulnerable groups. People have to be responsible in trying to map out their movements. So if people can restrict themselves in a way, you're going to a restaurant, fine, go and come back home, rather than moving on to another area like a mall.
Instead of dining out, we can really think about, shall we just order in and then we have the gathering back at home? In my opinion, that would still be a much more controlled situation.
151 new COVID-19 infections have been reported here, taking the national total to nearly 41,000. 2 are community cases, both work pass holders. There are no Singaporeans or permanent resident cases. The vast majority of the new cases continue to be migrant workers staying in dormitories.